Hello everyone, it's Yuba from Fairylight Tarot. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to have so much fun because this is my VR to Tarot with Lauren 13 Halloween Tarot. And since I've seen this video, I watched this video for the first time on Caliber's channel, this is a bit of a VR to her video as well. Let's do this. Okay, so the first prompt is, what is your favorite Halloween / Samhain / autumn themed deck? And you guys know that I have so many, so choosing a favorite was actually really hard for me. And I don't think I have just one favorite, because basically all of the videos that I'm posting in this Spooktober month are dedicated to these festivities. And so I'm just gonna go with this one because it is a tarot deck that means a lot to me. This is the Tarocchi Gialli, so it means yellow tarot. It's a Rider-Waite tarot deck inspired by Italian horror cinema from the 60s and the 70s. You guys know that I'm Italian, and I was born in the mid-70s, so obviously I was too little to go watch these movies at the cinema, but then I did have time, you know, in the late 80s and 90s to make up for that, and I became passionate of the genre. As a matter of fact, I would say that horror movies and horror fiction in general, it is definitely my #1 genre for enjoyment. I don't know what that says about me, but I'm just putting it out there. I just love it, and I don't love all of the tropes. Of course, there's a few, but I have to say that the movies that are inspired this deck were some of my favorites. Obviously, we had a tradition back in Italy in the 60s and 70s, thanks to internationally acclaimed directors like Mario Bava and Dario Argento, that really became popular. And so I just love to see this deck being inspired by those movies. So these cards literally look like posters, movie posters, and can we just say, look at this, the back of this book is just absolutely gorgeous. So this is a rather large deck, and it does constitute a little bit of a problem for me these days, because as you can see, I'm wearing these really long, making your life really hard stiletto nails. And this is because when I did the giveaway a few weeks ago, one of the conditions to enter the giveaway was to give me a preference of the nail sets that I was going to use during the month of October. And so this is part of those sets. And I have to say, I just cannot do anything with these nails. They're literally too long. I'm not used to them. I know that there's people wearing these all the time, but I'm not used to that, so I always remove them after I film a video. But I find that it's so much fun to actually look at them, and it looks like my fingers are so freakishly long, and I just really like them. But talking about the deck, so as I was saying, this deck is made in such a way that the cards remind you of movie posters, movies that were released in those 2 decades, so the 60s and the 70s, although they don't necessarily point to a movie in specific. So there's no copyright infringement, let's put it this way, in these cards. But I have to say, Nick has done a fantastic job, because being familiar with what those movies would have looked like, those movie posters would have looked like, I have to say that there is a very strong, flawless, you know, kind of remembrance of those the art style used in the posters, and the vibes and the energies that you know, were shown by the posters and were expressed by the movies themselves. So obviously we're looking at something really dark, and we're looking at something obviously also related to the mystery side of those horror movies. Tarocchi Gialli, so giallo was the way in which these mystery horrors were called. by aficionados of the genre. And even now, if you watch a movie on TV in Italy and someone's asking you for what genre the movie is, if it's a kind of a mix between a horror and a thriller or a mystery, you will say that it's a giallo. So it's a yellow, and you know, you can say that and everyone will understand you back in Italy. So it's something that is very common, and it's become very popular, and it's part of our culture. And I have to say, I really, really love using this deck. So it's not just an appreciation that comes for the aesthetics used, but also for the energies of the deck itself. And that's the main reason why I actually selected this deck out of the probably 3-4 dozen decks that I use in this season. So you guys know that I live in Australia, so obviously we're not talking about Samhain, because obviously Samhain is, the 31st of October in the northern hemisphere. In the southern hemisphere, we're nowhere near close to Samhain at all. But I have to say that, as I said in many videos before, this year, the veil is very thin for me. It feels very thin for me between this world and the next world. And it feels appropriate for me to celebrate Samhain at the same time as you guys in the northern hemisphere. So obviously all of the decks that I'm using this season are to help me understand what the message is related from the people that I love that are no longer with me, that are on the other side of the veil, because the veil feels so thin for this season. But in any case, so this is my choice for this prompt. So the next prompt is, what card or cards remind you of the Halloween / Samhain / autumn season? And I had to go with the star card from this deck, which is one of my favorite. You would have recognized it. It is the Slow Tarot by Lacey Bryant. It's an indie deck that has been out of print and very hard to find, I may say, for a while. However, there has been a recent reprint of this deck. I'm not entirely sure whether this deck is still available, this recent reprint, but I was really happy to see that more people were able to get this deck, because it is absolutely beautiful. It is a bit of a mix between modern and traditional RWS symbols. However, I have chosen this star card, and let me just put it here and zoom in, because I really want to talk about this card, and the reason why this is my pick for a card that symbolizes this season. So this is an amazing card. It's really, really beautiful, as you can see, not just because of the art style being gorgeous, of course, and that's obviously subjective. You may or may not appreciate or like the art style. But even if you don't, I would like to draw your attention on what this card actually expresses as a vibe, as a concept. So what we're looking at is a person that is standing on what looks like the deck of a boat, and obviously there is really choppy water surrounding their boat, and so much so that there's actually water coming in. There is a bucket, even a bucket that is collecting the water that is coming in. So the situation itself is not entirely positive, in the sense that the present of this person is probably really worrisome, is something that really scares them, because finding yourself on a boat, in the middle of a tempest in the sea, in the ocean, is something really scary. And there is that sense of being in a precarious and very dangerous kind of situation. But at the same time, what we can appreciate, and that's the meaning of the star card, is that it looks as if the storm is actually going to pass soon, because we see here that yes, there are clouds over there, but the clouds are actually making some room for a clear night sky. And what really matters is the sense of knowing your direction, being able to finally see where you have to go, I assume, in order to go safe to shore, because this person is using a navigational instrument which is called a sextant, and this sextant was used probably decades ago. I believe that now everything is done electronically. But this was used by navigators, by seasoned sailmen when they lost their way, or simply when they needed to understand what directions in which they were going to go. And it uses the position of the celestial bodies, such as stars, for example. So this is obviously an invitation to look at the star card as a means to know where we're going, to know what direction we must take. And the reason why I picked the star card in general is because this card for me represents hope, but it also represents the guidance that you receive from your ancestors and from the people you love that are no longer there with you. And therefore, this is really incarnated or embodied by this finding of your direction, thanks to the fact that finally the sky is clearing up and you can see the stars, and you can finally do your calculations and decide which way to take. So I really love this idea, because Samhain for me, as I said many times, is the time of the year in which we are finally attuned to the vibrations that represent the messages of our beloved ones beyond the veil. And so they're going to tell us where to go, they're going to tell us whenever we need to hear in order to find ourselves, but also to find the path, the right path. So I really, really love this card. So the next prompt is, do you use a Halloween/Samhain/autumn themed spread? And the answer is yes. It's a spread that I actually shared, I believe, a year ago on my channel, or perhaps it was on Instagram. It is, as you can see, it's a spread that really helps you open up your mind to the possibilities of receiving and understanding this really important message that your loved one have for you. And it is completely free. If you want to take a screenshot or and copy that, it will be really nice. If you do use it and you have an Instagram account or a YouTube account, please don't forget to tag me on it. I always love to see how others are using my spreads. So the next prompt is, if you could choose one card to dress up as for Halloween, which one is it and why? Now, I didn't know whether to choose a tarot card, as in using the meaning of the card, or use an actual card. And I've taken it to use an actual card from an actual deck, and it's going to be this one. So let me just zoom in so we can see better. So this is from the Trick or Treat Tarot, this one here by Barbara Moore, illustrated by Jonathan Hunt. This is one of my favorite Halloween decks, and it really does embody the spirit of Halloween with the trick or treat, But this one is the Wheel of Fortune, and it's basically depicting Morpheus. So if you have watched The Matrix, you will definitely recognize him, even though I think for copyright reasons they couldn't necessarily copy or make it look 100% like Lawrence Fishburne, who's the actor portraying Morpheus in the Matrix franchise, at least up until the latest installment. So as you can see here, Morpheus is literally, well, it's the Wheel of Fortune, and it makes sense because basically it's telling you, look, life is made of ups and downs, and it's up to you how you want to choose how to live your life. And the choices between the blue pill and the red pill, it's obviously between, do you really want to know what's going on, or do you want to stay oblivious to truth and to reality, basically. And I think that even though this is not necessarily a traditional Halloween custom, I don't really see people dressed up as Morpheus for Halloween, I do still believe though that if you think about it, this is one of the scariest decisions that a person has to make, because obviously, when you choose one pill versus the other, you also know that your choice is permanent. I don't see that sense of permanence impermanence belonging to the Wheel of Fortune, because I do believe that the Wheel of Fortune is always in continuous movement, and therefore, you know, after something is up, it needs to come down, but there is also a possibility for something that has come down to go back up because of continuity and cycles in life. However, it is a scary card for me, because when you look at it this way, you know, when you choose, you have to choose your candy. Obviously, these are not pills, these are candies, but they are either blue or red. And it looks almost as if Morpheus, or the character that looks like Morpheus, is throwing them at us, and it's up to us to reach out and grab them. And which one we will grab will determine, you know, our choices for the future and for our lives. So it's actually really intense and scary as a concept, I would say. So I would actually love to dress up as Morpheus if I could find a costume, obviously. And the next prompt is, are there any Halloween / Samhain / autumn themed tarot or oracle decks on your wish list? And yes, there's definitely one, which I believe is from a company, printing company or creative company called Duck Soup. And it's this one here. So it's a really cool Halloween themed deck that I really like. And I would love to be able to get it. I know that there's it's still in print, but I believe it's a custom print, because you need to choose the backings, and so it can take a while. I don't have any experience. I've never ordered from this website. I have reached around, and I don't actually know anyone who's ordered directly from them. I know of someone who's bought a secondhand deck that from someone who did, but my question was around the production times, because obviously we are at the end of October, and even though it is free shipping, I really don't think it's gonna get delivered in Australia by Halloween. I really think it's impossible, even if they printed it immediately and used DHL for shipping, which is very expensive. But in any case, this is definitely one deck that I would love to have, and perhaps I will, you know, have it for next year's Halloween. So the next prompt is literally what inspired me to pick up on this VR, because it's really interesting. And let me just read it to you. So it says, describe your favorite scary movie or book using tarot cards. See if anyone can guess what it is, and then at the end of the video I will give you the answer. So basically I'm going to pick a few tarot cards to describe the plot or the synopsis of my favorite horror book. I'm not going to tell you the title, but you guys, if you know me, you will know already what it is, or you'll probably guess the author. And then at the end of this video I will reveal what the movie or the book, but there was also a movie made out of it. So as a writer, I find this extremely interesting and challenging as well, because obviously we are storytellers as writers, but we're also storytellers as tarot readers, and I'm just going to do my best. I watched Kelly's video and she does a fantastic job, and I wish that I was at least, if I could be half as good in describing the plot of the book like she did with the cards, then I think you guys will get the book I'm talking about. Let's start. So, oh, by the way, I'm using the Under the Oak Tarot, which is fantastic, because I really believe that it's one of my preferred storytelling kind of tarot decks, and hopefully you will feel that too. So I have my script in front of me and I will have to read it, so sorry if I will sound a bit, you know, like I'm reading a text, because I literally am. So let's start. Someone really close to the main character gets killed, and as a consequence, the main character's view of the world becomes very dark and overwhelming. The main character creates a strong bond of friendship with a few kids his age from his same town. But now they're all targeted by a malevolent entity who killed the main character's brother and uses their own fears against them. The main character and his friends feel trapped and defeated. After a short reprieve, they leave town never to return again, or so they thought. After 27 years, they are called back to their native place to finish what they started. They celebrate initially their childhood memories at their reunion. But their joy doesn't last long, as they learn that one of them is no more. They decide to combine their efforts to defeat their enemy once and for all. They struggle, and at a certain point, all seems lost. They understand that they can overcome their enemy by embracing the love they have for each other. And finally, they win over evil. So I hope that it was clear. This is what is called an outline. Basically, writers, we call this thing, we call it outline. And just to give you an example, for my second book, which is going to be published next year, I redid the outline 12 times. 12 times. And it's uncommon to redo an outline 12 times, but it's not uncommon to redo it several times. I remember I was watching a masterclass by R.L. Stein, which is the author of Goosebumps, and he was saying that he redoes his outline so many times that sometimes he scratches his head thinking, did I just wrote the entire book? So it is something that is common to writers, to always be changing our mind on what comes next. But in any case, so this is the using tarot cards to reflect the plot or the synopsis of my favorite horror book. And at the end of the video, as I said, I will reveal what the title is. So the next prompt is, do you dabble in any other divination systems when the veil is thin? And I don't know if I use other divination systems specifically because the veil is thin, other than using the spread that I shared earlier, or I definitely try and use a lot more of protection. I focus on protecting myself and my energies, and even my heart, obviously, because this time of the year is very intense. It can become very overwhelming, especially if you're very sensitive to what the energies are and the messages coming from beyond the veil. So you always need to get grounded. You always need to be sensitive. Protect your heart. Protecting your heart is extremely important, but I will share that in a different prompt because I believe that it's more pertaining to that. There is, however, I do use, generally speaking, other divination methods. I've just recently repurchased a bone throwing set, which has not arrived yet. It's coming from overseas and it needs to get all sorts of documents to be cleared at customs. So I'm very nervous because I don't even know if it's going to make it to my place or not. I stress 100% that when you're using bones in your bone throwing kit, please always make sure that they are ethically sourced. No harm means, needs to come to animals for that. And it's something that is extremely important for me and close to my heart. I used to have a bone throwing set many years ago, but of course I could not bring it to Australia because of, custom regulations, of course. It's when it comes to, the possibility of bringing in bacteria, viruses, etc. Australia is a very strict country. And so, but now, because I found someone who told me not to worry, they have been shipping to Australia before, and they assure me 100% that there won't be any trouble at customs. So I'm just keeping my fingers crossed, but I don't have it yet, so I cannot show that to you. So the next prompt is, what cards scare you, shadow cards, and how do you deal with them? Let me show you. Okay, so the card that I've chosen is the Five of Swords from this deck here, which is a gorgeous deck. It's called the Ghosts and Spirit Tarot by Lisa Hunt. This is a US Games deck that is still in print, even though it is a fairly older deck. I believe it's been printed 2011, so obviously we're looking at a deck that is almost 15 years old. It is incredibly beautiful. I, for one, am an admirer of Lisa Hunt's artwork because it's just absolutely fantastic, and I love all of her decks, but this one is by far my favorite because of the theme, so obviously Ghosts and Spirits. The reason why I've chosen the Five of Swords is because, to me, the Five of Swords is the worst card on a tarot deck. And I refer back to the description of Pixie herself. So she was talking about the inspiration for the Five of Swords, and she was talking about the story of the giant. And if you have watched my channel for any length of time, you will remember, you will definitely recognize this story because I love talking about it. So there's the story of this giant that lives in an island, and the giant eats people. How nice that is. And there's two groups of people, there's a group of people, sorry, and they defeat him because obviously there's strength in numbers, so they outnumber the giant, they always defeat him, they never kill him. But the giant is very, very smart, and so at a certain point he understands that the only way to overcome the people and ultimately feed off them is to divide and conquer. And so what he does, he goes to someone from the group and he tells them that there's a number of people from the group that are plotting against them, and he does the same to somebody else. So it basically divides one group into two groups, and by gaslighting them, he tells them that one group is plotting against the other, so he puts them one against the other. And obviously they come to a confrontation, to a conflict, they kill a lot of people, and whomever is left is obviously too weak to overcome the giant, who finally can feed off the humans, of the people that are left. So this is obviously a story of gaslighting. It's a story of betrayal, but it's a story of, let's say, getting to an end with some really awful means. And I do see that happening all the time in the world, and in each day we come across someone who's unfortunately lying to us, or even creating tensions between us and somebody who's a friend, a partner, a parent, a relative, a child, etc. Because they literally want to divide and conquer. And so the gaslighting as a keyword for the Five of Swords for me is crucial, because it really does tell you the measure of evil that this card embodies. And when it comes to this deck in specific, so if you don't know this deck, it does have a brilliant guidebook that tells you about the stories that were the inspiration for each and every card. And so when you read the one that inspired this image for the Five of Swords, you will read that there is a let's say a story in one of Goethe's works. It's called the Erlkoning, and I'm probably butchering the name, Erlkonig. So König, I know that means king, so the King Earl, but I'm not entirely sure that that's the correct way to interpret that. But it is an existing story by Goethe. Was a German writer, and basically this story says that there is this child that is really weak and dying, and is very, very sick, and the father of the child is clutching the child to his chest and running as fast as he can back home, but all around the child there are these spirits, malevolent entities that want to take the child's soul. And so the father doesn't want to worry the child, and he tells the child that not to worry because these are just the noises that he hears coming from the forest, and there's nothing to be worried about. But at the same time, he knows that that's not so, and so he's rushing back home. But when he gets home, he finds that the child is already dead. So there is this sense of obviously telling lies, In this case, the father is telling a lie to his child to protect him, or maybe to make it so that he doesn't get worried. But at the same time, that's literally what happens. So the child literally gets taken, and his soul gets taken by the spirits that they encounter in the forest. So it's a very sad story. It's a story that talks about an impossible competition or conflicts, let's say, when you enter a situation in which there's absolutely no way that you're going to win, because there's a massive advantage held by the other party, the other person, or the spirit, or whomever is in front of you, whomever is attacking you. And so no matter what you do, you're not going to win. And there is a sadness to that is at the same time also scary, because it can happen anytime, and we'll never be aware of that because we're being gaslighted. And I think that it's a fantastic, albeit very sad, story. And that is, to me, a Five of Swords is this card that is the card that actually scares me when I pull it for myself, because I know that it will be impossible for me to overcome that. But the prompt is also how you deal with it. And, for me, the best way is to be honest with whomever you're facing. If we go back to the story of the giant, it's all about being open and honest and finding a way to communicate and say, hey, by the way, the giant told me that you're plotting against me. Is that true? There's nothing wrong in asking questions. There's nothing wrong in being honest and, and just trying and understand what is happening. Because I believe that when something is said behind somebody's back and you're not aware of what that is, that's where you're risking, that's where you're in danger. So the way in which I try and deal with this card and how much it scares me for the concept that it's expressing is by trying to be honest and open to communication. So the next prompt is, what tarot superstition do you believe in or adhere to? There's none. I simply have rituals, but I don't call them superstition. And I understand what the prompt is. So for example, do I believe that the first deck needs to be a gift, or can I buy it to myself, etc.? Coincidentally, my first deck was a gift, but if I hadn't received it as a gift, I would have bought it. So it's not like something was stopping me from buying it. I honestly don't have any superstition rituals in using them, of course, but I don't see them as a superstition. So the next prompt is very close to my heart. It says, what, if anything, changes in your tarot practice during the Halloween/Samhain season? Okay, I strongly believe in protecting myself, and so I do have a few rituals that I use. So something, for example, I always use rose quartz to protect, and amethyst sometimes to protect my heart. So for example, this is a palm stone because it lays really snug in the palm of your hand. And so I often, I leave it on my desk, and I often pick it up whenever I feel that I'm getting a little bit overwhelmed because of the energies of this season. I also light up this specific type of incense. This is very unique. It is almost impossible for me to find it. It is not released in Australia. I only ever found it in Asia. So whenever I go to Asia, I make sure to buy a bunch of these. This is the agarbatti by Shashi Industries, and it's just absolutely divine. Obviously, through the video, you cannot smell it. But this is absolutely marvelous, and I absolutely loved using this, although I am very careful because I have two cats, so I'm always very careful not to light it up in the same room where they're in, and if I do light it up, then I close the door. I know that there's technically not a lot of risks, but I do know that, for example, burning essential oils can be toxic to cats, so this kind of smoke, which shouldn't be toxic, but I don't want to risk it. Maybe I'm overreacting. I don't mind. I prefer to be safe than sorry. And then I wanted to show you a set of candles that I bought recently to use for this Samhain. So this is from Wishcraft Candles, Wixcraft Candles. And I love the title of this box is Meet Me at the Cemetery Candle Collection, because we got Eternal Rest, Hannah, Thy Ancestors, Midnight Stroll, and Wilton Roses. So this is an Australian company, and you guys know me, I always like to support Australian businesses because I really love what they're creating, and also because I strongly believe that you know, as being living in Australia, this is, you know, these are my fellow co-nationals, and obviously I want to support their business, and sometimes they also support mine, so it's always marvelous. But let me show you. Obviously, again, I cannot, you know, I cannot convey the smell of these candles, unfortunately, but they are absolutely beautiful and they smell amazing. All of them. My favorite one is actually Hannah, Thy Ancestors. So I haven't used them yet. As you can see, they are pristine. Let me just see if I can open one to show you. There you go. So they have different colors inside, and I can assure you they just smell divine. And I'm going to use them for Samhain, because this is a ritual that I am definitely going to do in order to, you know, open my mind to communication. But I don't want to sound, because I know that there's a lot of us that don't necessarily believe that you can you know, communicate with someone who's already passed on. So I don't want to sound I don't want it to sound like wishful thinking. Obviously I do miss the people that I loved and that are no longer in my life. What I do say is that I don't always feel their presence in my life, but I was talking to a member on my channel yesterday actually, and I was telling her, you know, this year in specific, it feels like the veil is very thin, almost to the point of being non-existent. And I dream a lot, almost every night. I dream of someone who's passed on, and they come to me and they talk to me, and it feels very, very intense, but at the same time I'm exhausted. It can get pretty overwhelming, and so I don't mean to say that I speak to them, but they do come to visit me in my dreams, which is something very human. Whenever we miss someone, we may actually dream about them. And so I'm just going to, you know, say that if you feel like you're missing your loved ones that are no longer there, it is perfectly okay to remember them, but always make sure that you protect yourself, because there is a lot to be said about the energies and the flow of energies. And no matter what the extent of your belief is in being in, not necessarily in communication, but feeling the presence or maybe the love of someone, that goes through that defeats death, because obviously not in the physical realm, but definitely in any other way possible. That is something that is obviously draining you of your energy. So always make sure that you're protected and that you recuperate your energies and that you stay grounded. That's my advice. So the next prompt is, do you perform magic using tarot or oracle cards? If so, is there a technique, spell, or meditation you can share? So I strongly believe that we cannot just by intention inflict any bad intention on others. I do believe though, and I don't know if that makes sense. If it doesn't, please ignore me, please skip ahead. This is just a conversation. I do believe so. I do believe though that we can protect ourselves from bad energy, bad vibes, negative intentions from others that could harm us possibly. I believe that if we always make sure to combine physical exercise of some sorts for grounding ourselves. I mentioned earlier, for example, going for a walk, going for a swim, even lighting up a candle, saying a mantra. For example, I love the Gayatri mantra. It's my favorite mantra of all times. I think it's very conducive, but it's very powerful, and at times makes me very emotional as well. It's really beautiful. And I believe that if you choose compassion. And please understand, I'm not being naive. So compassion is a choice, and it's not an easy one. We go through life facing adversities, some of us even more than others, but in any case, we all do at different times. And sometimes we get upset, and sometimes getting upset requires perhaps showing that we are angry. But we have a choice, and that's what I firmly believe in. We have a choice. We have a choice on how to respond to someone who's out there to hurt us. Of course, protect yourself. I'm not saying let them hurt you. Absolutely not. Please understand. But there are ways to choose this kind of protection. And for me, I've tried everything, but I found that the best way is to choose compassion. So I've had something recently happening to me. Someone was very nasty to me, very unpleasant, and I could have chosen to be just as unpleasant, just as nasty. Believe me, I can. I'm an air sign. I need to say no more. I can use my words in such a way that I can actually respond to an attack. I can. But I choose to be kind. And I choose compassion. And let me remind you of something that really gave me goosebumps. There's a scene in a movie. It's one of my favorite movies of all times. And I've talked about this movie before. It's Everything Everywhere All at Once. So Michelle Yeoh and sorry, I don't remember the name of the male actor. I love him. So sorry that I forgot his name. If I remember to look for it, I will just write it here in on the video. But so Michelle Yeoh, and I hope I'm not spoiling anything about the movie, but Michelle Yeoh has to, let's say, fight for a reason, and she can fight through switching from one universe to another, and then every time that she switches to a different universe, she is acquiring a set of skills that she's then using as her weapons. Okay, so she goes from kung fu to using knives, etc. At a certain point, she gets to a universe in which, and she's always reconnecting with the people around her. At a certain point, she gets to a universe in which her husband, who's always her husband in all the universes, I believe, is a very, how should I say, meek person, is a very kind person. And she reacts to that and she says, why don't you step up? Why don't you defend yourself? Why don't you get angry? Why don't you fight? And his answer is, what if kindness were my weapon? What if I chose to be kind? What if I choose to be compassionate? And that is my weapon of choice. And that is something that literally hit me very close to my heart, because it is something that it is a conscious choice, but it is a choice. And let me tell you, it's not an easy choice. I'm not being a wuss by choosing not to get upset. I'm just consciously choosing kindness, and that is my weapon. And that is exactly I believe the way I feel is exactly the same way this character in this movie feels. So this is a bit of a convoluted way, but this is performing magic for me, protecting myself and being kind and choosing compassion. So the next prompt is, what cards in the tarot deck do you think talk about being haunted? And I know that my choice is going to sound really odd, but for me, that's a Six of Cups. And let me just zoom in. So this is the Six of Chalices, which is a renaming for the Suit of Cups. And I've taken it from the Gothic Literature tarot deck, which is by Syrian Shadow, which is a Kickstarter campaign that closed a few months ago. And I only just received the reward last week. Which is an amazing deck, and it comes in this really gorgeous box That is just absolutely amazing. And really, you know, when they use the deluxe, the word deluxe, and you think, yeah, come on, it's not really deluxe now, is it? But this one, absolutely 100% is, it feels like it's a luxurious item. Really, really beautiful. Everything about this deck is amazing. The cardstock is phenomenal. It's got this sense of really soft linen to it, which I really love. So why did I choose the Six of Cups? Okay, so this is very personal, but it's the way in which I read this card. So the Six of Cups can talk about nostalgia. It can talk about remembering a time when everything was so much easier, when we didn't have to necessarily worry about making ends meet. So obviously we're thinking about probably a time in which we were little and we were protected by our parents. We, you know, we were playing the whole day. We were just living a happy life. And we were generally speaking happy because we had not had any experience yet of you know, things that could go wrong, of or for example things that can hurt us, or things that can you know, represent something negative. Or let's face it, I mean, when you're a child, you're not necessarily responsible for your actions, so you're not necessarily let's say, you cannot be defined as a bad child unless there's some really, really compelling reason, but it's very rare. And it's, in some cases, it is accompanied by severe mental illnesses. But even so, in that case, it would not be the responsibility of the child. It would be because of the mental illness. So I'm thinking about a few examples of children who have, for example, harmed their brothers or sisters. But in that case, there was always a reason, mostly biological. But what I mean with that haunting, why is the Six of Cups a haunted card for me? Because that time can actually be haunting for us. Especially when we're going through something, especially when we as adults are processing feelings of being lost, being unfulfilled, being unsatisfied, believing that we are worthless, and so on and so forth. And there's many of these feelings. We can often start thinking, when I was a kid, I didn't have to worry about that. When I was a kid, everything was fine. When I was a kid, everything was beautiful. When I was a kid, everything was love and peace and you know, and rosy, and going out with my parents and buying a toy and playing with my friends and watching TV or what have you. That is a haunting for me. You are haunted by these memories. And let me tell you, even though the Six of Cups inherently does represent a little bit of a reason for you to recuperate your energy, I do read it like that. I also read it as a caveat or a warning not to dwell too long on these feelings, because you'll definitely end up in an Eight of Swords situation. You end up in a cage situation, because we are not children anymore. And the fact of being adults, it carries the responsibilities of being one. And so if we keep on thinking that we were happier when we were a child, we'll never be happy as an adult, because we're not children anymore. And so the circumstances that made us happy when we were children are not to be repeated. Of course, we can find other reasons to be happy as an adult, with taking on all the responsibilities that go with it. So if we get stuck in that sense of nostalgia and believing, it was so much better back then, that is definitely haunting for me. It haunts me to remember. It kind of hurts me to remember that I was, you know, what I was or how I was when I was a child. So that's the reason why I'm looking at this card as a haunted card. Okay, so the next and last prompt, but don't worry, I won't forget to tell you what the answer to the movie is. The last prompt is: take out your favorite Halloween, Samhain or autumn themed deck, shuffle them and pull 3 cards and interpret them as a message for the viewers or however you see fit. As always, I have to give a disclaimer. So, you know, I always read with intention for someone, but in order to do that, I always need their consent. I never read for third parties. I never read for someone who doesn't know that I'm doing a reading for them. So obviously, this reading I'm going to do is, you know, you can look at it. If it resonates with you, you can take it. If it doesn't mean anything, then discard it as you please, of course. So I'm going to use the last tarot deck that I've shown you, the Gothic Literature by Syrian Shadow. And I'm going to shuffle it. I'm going to shuffle out of camera because shuffling with these nails, let me tell you, it's nigh to impossible. Overhand is kind of okay, and I have to say this is a fantastic, very bouncy, very flexible cardstock, so it's probably one of the easiest decks that I've got, but as you see, I've already lost a nail, so let me just shuffle the deck and get back. Okay, here we go. So I've been shuffling the deck, being extremely careful, but I still lost a couple of nails in the process. Luckily they're adhesive, as you can tell, they're adhesive nails, so obviously you can just put them back on. It's not one of those nails that you do at the nail salon where they glue them with permanent glue to your nail bed, which is actually, I found out for my own nails, it resulted in a month-long pain on the nails, and it was just terrible. So let me just pick 3 cards. So I want to go here, and I want to go here, and let's go with this one here. Did I say what the deck was? Yes, the Gothic Literature by Syrian Shadow. Really beautiful deck. Here we go. Does it fit in the frame? Yes, it does. Okay. So what have we got here? We got the 8 of Skulls, which is, the Skulls is Pentacles. King of Torches, which is a renaming for the Suit of Wands. And the 8 of Ravens, which is the renaming for the Suit of Air or Sword. Okay, so what we see here in the present, what we see is the 8 of Skulls, so the 8 of Pentacles. We're seeing someone who is very dedicated to their work. They really reached a point in which they know, after an assessment of things, they actually know that they are going down the right path, but they also know that they're nowhere near the end. They can feel it though. And that represents a bit of an inspiration to double down on your work and really work hard in order to be able to see the results coming your way soon. Obviously, we're talking about the Suit of Pentacles, so it's always related to the natural world as well as world of finances and any kind of resources you can have, so money obviously, but any other kind of resources depending on what your business is. So you're literally hard at work right now. This is the card that tells you you're so hard at work that you're probably not even noticing anything else that is going around you. So much so that it brings me to what brought this situation into being, and I see that in the King of Torches, so the King of Wands as we normally see it. So the King of Wands is the culmination in the evolution of the core cards for the Suit of Wands, the Suit of Fire, and it always represents the activity, that fire that burns, but burns with a purpose, with an intention. So it's always achieving something because they have the discipline and also the energy to do that and to get to their or reach their goal with this, you know, ticking all the boxes, doing everything right. It is almost as if it were a confirmation of the 8 of Skulls, someone who's dedicating all their lives into completing their task can also be seen as a King of Wands in the sense that they achieve their task. So it's the natural evolution of doubling down into your own work. But at the same time, and I'm reading it with a but at the same time, because I'm also looking at the 8 of Ravens here, when we see this card going the extra mile repeatedly and getting to the point of not being aware of what happens around them and just dedicating their whole life to just work, what can happen, and I am keen to read this as a reversal, we will see this person evolving into a prisoner of their own discipline, a prisoner of a cage of their own making, which is basically the way in which I read the Eight of Ravens or the Eight of Swords. So you will notice that I have no problems in reversing cards when I do not shuffle in reverse, because I don't believe that it should be last chance. What I do is I read the cards and I understand their meaning in the specific positions they're in after I have a look, a bird's eye view, you may say, to all of the cards in the reading. So this one obviously gave me the warning that there is a sense of being stuck. There is a sense of not progressing. There is a sense of not just being stuck, but also not being able to liberate yourself. And most of the time, the traditional way of looking at the Eight of Swords is that this is a cage of your own making. You did it to yourself. Perhaps by following too much to the letter what your sense of discipline was telling you to do. And that's the way in which I read the King of Torches of Wands in reverse, because he told me in anticipation of what is happening with the Eight of Swords. So a message from this is, in order to return the King of Wands to an upright position and hence releasing yourself from the Eight of the cage of your own making and the Eight of Swords, you also need to be aware of what happens in your surrounding. So, of course, it is an extremely valuable option to double down on your work, but never forget to always be aware of your own self, your core self. Perhaps you do need a break every now and then, but also of your surrounding. I cannot tell you the number of people coming to me with a very difficult personal relationship because they work too much. They never see their spouse, they never see their family. They always count on saying it is about quality, not about quantity. And then my response is, of course, but each situation is different. And if you find yourself in a difficult position right now, it's because perhaps you needed a bit of quantity beside quality. And so be aware of your surrounding, be aware of what the toll is of dabbling down into what you're doing. Are you ignoring, are you neglecting something or someone that is around you and that needs you at that time? So be the King of Wands, but be the King of Wands in an upright position. Be the King of Wands that doesn't end up being a prisoner of a cage of their own making. Okay, now the answer to the movie, or rather the title of the movie, or rather the book, is It by Stephen King. It's one of my favorite by far. I absolutely love it. It's something that has always accompanied me wherever I read it the first time. I absolutely recognized the feelings that you experience while you're reading the book, because these kids, when they're little, they're persecuted, they're bullied, and it really tells you that the only way to face your fears is to have the courage and find it within yourself, basically the strength card, because it tells you that you need to iron out all of the doubts that you have about how much valuable you are as a person and how important your role is in your society, in your circle of friends, in your family, etc. And so once you find that, you will find the correct way to respond to a bully and overcome that malevolent entity that is, using your own fears against you. And I absolutely love that. Let me know in the comments below if you could guess the movie. If you know me, you probably would have, because I always talk about that movie and other movies by Stephen King, which is one of my favorite authors. I did love the movies as well. Sorry, not just the book, also the movies. Well, that was it. If you like this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really means a lot to me. It helps grow my channel, and when I can grow my channel, I can actually produce even more content so you can enjoy it. But for now, have a great day.